Listen to the JT Sports Podcast on all podcasting platforms and leave a 5-star review.
Oregon beat UCLA 45-30. And after watching this game, I came away with two big takeaways about Oregon football. The first one is me stating the obvious, but we should all agree that Oregon right now is the team to beat in the Pac-12. This is the most talented team in this conference. They are the most complete team in the Pac-12 right now. They have one of the best offensive lines in college football. They are absolutely loaded at running back and wide receiver. Bo Nix is playing at a insane level. Shoot, you probably could say that Bo Nix deserves to be in the Heisman conversation. And not to mention, their defense is also insanely talented as well. They have the most talented defense in this conference. Now, when you look at the trajectory of this Oregon football program, Oregon fans right now should be insanely excited. Excitement for the future of Oregon football should be at an all-time high. You want to know why? Because you upgraded at head coach with Dan Lanning. When Mario Cristobal left, I had my reservations because he recruited at a really high level and he had a pretty good amount of success during his time at Oregon. However, he left for Miami, and we all see how that's going right now. I'm a Miami fan, so I'm not going to get into that. But it was a lot of concern when it came to figuring out who is going to be the next head coach after Cristobal left. Because Mario Cristobal did a very good job at recruiting and building up that Oregon program. But they peaked under him. And there is a level that I think Oregon can reach under Dan Lanning. And I think that level is actually them finally being able to make it to the college football playoffs and to compete for a national championship. And I mean, they recruit at a really high level. So I don't really think the talent is the issue. Really, it's just the coaching. And there has been plenty of times when Oregon has won big games and then they have lost games that they had no business losing. However, I think that Dan Lanning is going to put Oregon in better positions to be in the conversation for the college football playoffs in the future, because I think that he's a better game day coach than Mario Cristobal. You see, Mario Cristobal recruited all of these insanely talented players out of high school, especially on the offensive side of football. However, what's the point of recruiting a 5 or 4-star quarterback, wide receiver, if you're going to put them in the offense that's going to limit what they do well and minimize their development? And that's what Mario Cristobal's offensive system did to a lot of the talent that he recruited. It neutralized them. And he didn't really try to do anything to adjust his offense. His mentality kind of was, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Meanwhile, you look at Dan Lanning, this is an Oregon football team that can beat you several ways. Under Mario Cristobal, Oregon's mentality was smash mouth football. We're going to be a more physical football team. We're going to run the football down your throat, and we're going to impose our will on you. However, you look at Dan Lanning, and he says, yeah, we can impose our will on you running the football, but we also can air you out. So it's pick your poison. And you look at the decision to go for that onside kick. That's really what has me so excited about Dan Lanning and what he can do for this football program. And some of you guys may feel like I'm going a little bit too deep with this, but hear me out. That decision to go for that onside kick in the second quarter, it wasn't just some random thought that popped into his head. He didn't say, oh man, let's just go for an onside kick. This was something that Oregon and Dan Lanning actually were practicing in secrecy all week. And Dan Lanning, according to reports, told members of the media who were in attendance during Oregon's practices not to say anything about what they were doing, because this was something that they planned to execute in the game. And they did it flawlessly. And the fact that he was able to say, you know what? I realized something. Let's work on this. This is something that could give us an edge. And it worked. That is the sign of a good coach. You see, I don't think too many coaches would pay attention to what happens during the onside kick and then think to try to build upon it. You feel me? Like, the onside kick normally is something that no matter what level of football you play, you don't really practice recovering onside kicks all that much. And I don't really think no coach even makes it a focus in practice to say, hey, we're going to dedicate 30, 40 minutes of our practice time to working on recovering this onside kick. Like, I don't think a lot of people realize the thinking that goes into these things. Because it may sound simple, but a lot of coaches don't think of things like this. And small attentions to details is what makes great coaches. Because the small things add up. The little things add up and they turn into big things. So with Dan Lanning right now, I just love what he's doing with this Oregon football team. And I wonder, if Oregon never played Georgia their first game of the season, and let's say they would have played like a FCS opponent or something like that, and they were still undefeated at this point of the season right now, how would you view them? Do you guys think they would be viewed as a top 4 team, a top 5 team? Or do you guys still think that people wouldn't give them the respect that they deserve because they're going to say they played in the Pac-12 conference, which people really shouldn't be using that this year as a knock on any team in this conference, because this Pac-12 conference is really good. And I can't wait for bowl season to come around, because they're going to smack a lot of other conferences and make a lot of other conferences look really bad, because this conference isn't top heavy. Like, there are some really good teams in the middle portion of this conference, like Oregon State and Washington. Now, when you look at UCLA, we got to talk about them. Going into this game, we knew that they were going to have success running the football. However, if you are a Bruins fan and somebody came up to you and told you, hey, Zach Charbonnet is going to run for over 100 yards rushing in this game. He's going to have 20 carries for 151 rushing yards and 1 touchdown. Do you guys think that you're going to win? Most Bruins fans will tell you, hell yeah. Because prior to this game, they were 11-0 when Zach Charbonnet has rushed for 100 yards or more during the game. However, he did that this game, and they still lost. And they lost by 2 possessions. And the reason for that was because they were put in a lot of 3rd and long situations. And the key to slowing down UCLA's offense is that you got to be able to win on the early downs against them. You got to be able to force them to lose a couple of yards or first down or second down and get them in 3rd and long situations. Because if you put them in 3rd and short or 3rd and manageable, they're going to convert more times than not. And when you put them in like a 3rd and 4 or shorter situation, they're going to convert that at least 88% of the time. This is a team that is really built on dominating the trenches. So for Oregon, I thought it was a very good game plan, that the fact that they were so successful at winning in those earlier downs and forcing UCLA to have to convert in 3rd and long spots. And that caused UCLA to miss out on several opportunities to keep up with Oregon in this game, because Oregon's defense didn't necessarily play well, in my opinion. You know, they played well to the standards that I have for these Pac-12 defenses, because I always view defenses in a certain light. People think a great defense is a defense that just holds you to 0 points, doesn't give up a lot of yards. Like, you can be a great defense in different ways. And in this game, Oregon was really great defensively, situationally. 3rd down, they got off the field. In the red zone, they were able to hold them to a couple of field goals. They were able to force a turnover late in this game, an interception on DTR. So with UCLA, if they play again, I think that this game would be way more closer. However, I still would take Oregon to win because they're a more talented team. But UCLA's offense just couldn't keep up pace with Oregon's offense. And it really just was because they just couldn't keep matching Oregon's touchdown total. Oregon scored touchdowns on 6 out of 8 of their offensive possessions. That's insane. So UCLA got to find the defense. I mean, their defense at times can be really optimistic. They can force a takeaway or two in big spots. But when you're trying to beat a team like Oregon, you have to be able to clamp down and have a stretch during this game where you can hold their offense to maybe 3 points and buy your offense time to get some things going. And for UCLA, their defense never did that. Like, their offense was scoring, but they never gave their offense a break. It's like their offense was always down, always down, always down. It's like, imagine if UCLA's defense could have gotten 1 or 2 stops. This game would have been dramatically different because it's not like UCLA wasn't scoring. I mean, they barely punted in this game. Oregon and UCLA. Both of these offenses were going absolutely bonkers. However, the field goals were what killed UCLA. You got to get in the end zone. And the reason why they had to go for those field goals was because they were put in those 30-long spots. Now, also, after that onside kick, that's when things really tilted towards Oregon's favor. I mean, after that, they scored. It was 24-10. They went into halftime with a pretty big lead, and they never really looked back. However, UCLA did do a good job fighting back, getting back into the game. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see these two teams meet up in a rematch in the Pac-12 Championship game. And I really hope it happens. I really want to see it because I think that these two teams are the two best teams in the Pac-12 this season. You look at USC, I don't think their defense is as good as Oregon's or UCLA's. However, I do think that when it comes to offensive firepower, I think they got more than UCLA, and they probably might be a little bit on par with Oregon. Maybe a tie, I don't know. But let me know how you guys feel about this game down in the comment section down below. And even though UCLA lost this game, I don't really want anybody looking at UCLA in a worser light or worse light than what they did prior to this game. Because don't let this one loss make you forget the fact that UCLA has wins over Washington and Utah. UCLA is 2-1 against ranked opponents this year. That's something that you definitely should not forget. And this team does have the talent to pull off upset against Oregon if they can get a little bit more help from their defense the next go around. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in to this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. Make sure that you check out the podcast available on all podcasting platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts from. The JT Sports Podcast is available. You can check out the JT Sports Podcast with the links down in the description or the pinned comment section. And I will see you guys with another episode shortly of the JT Sports Podcast.